This program contains mature subject matter and is not appropriate for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
The story you are about to see was inspired by actual events. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Heading west on Sherman Way, LAPD Detective 3 Joe Friday makes a right turn driving his 2001 model Ford Crown Victoria Police Interceptor into a well-to-do housing tract. Two-story and three-story trappings of architects, surgeons, and celebrities.
It was Sunday. It was a perfect day in the West Valley, the farthest reaches of Los Angeles. Spotless streets, glistening lawns. You could almost think it was the 1950s.
Making another right turn, Joe spots the yellow crime scene tape about 200 feet ahead.
The call came into robbery homicide at 11:30. Female Caucasian, dead from trauma to the head. I drove out to meet my partner in the West Valley. Out here it used to be cattle ranches, walnut groves. Now, you blink a new subdivision appears. Clean, welcoming. They take us back to when we believed the world was a simple place. One thing, of course, had changed since then. The crime rate. My name's Friday. I'm a cop.
Parking his unmarked squad car at the curb about 20 feet from the yellow tape, Detective Joe Friday kills the engine, sets the parking brake, and remains seated for just a moment as he visually scans the crime scene from this quiet perspective. He notices mostly empty driveways in all the nearby homes. Where are the neighbors? The crime scene well underway, but no sign of his younger partner, Frank Smith. Joe must have gotten here first. In the distance, he notices another detective, a duly capable-looking 30-something woman, a Latina, about 5'8", 150 pounds. She wears a dark brown corduroy blazer and looks like maybe a burnt orange turtleneck, nondescript dark blue slacks. At the front of her hip, a badge clipped to her black leather belt, and both hands gloved in white latex. Making eye contact through the car's windshield, she and Joe exchange a familiar nod. She ducks under the yellow tape, then, with purposeful stride, she approaches Joe's unmarked squad car. As a respectful greeting, she briefly plants a hand on the driver's side door.
Detective Friday.
Then steps back, addressing him through the open window.
I'm Denise Beltran.
Exiting the vehicle, the balding 56-year-old detective stands 6 feet tall on a 200-pound frame.
West Valley, right? You look familiar.
I just got transferred to RHD. Captain tried to call your partner, Detective Smith, but apparently he's out of town.
Joe Friday. Simple dark blue blazer, maroon tie, light blue shirt.
He must have left in a hurry.
Our victim's Lisa Paris, 26. Front door is open. Her fiancé found her. He's out back.
The fiancé is out back. Good. Keep witnesses away from the evidence, especially fiancé. Joe glances at the wide-open front door. A forensic specialist in a blue plastic bunny suit is dusting the doorknob for fingerprints. On a nearby tripod with a mounted laser device, which is pointed at the door's top edge. The enormous two-story house looms over the busy crime scene. As Beltran leads Joe Friday inside, the veteran detective asks about the quiet neighborhood.
Neighbors?
They did a perimeter search. All the houses are empty.
Any sign of forced entry?
Looks clean. Apparently she just moved in.
Too bad she didn't get a chance to enjoy it.
Inside the large abode, the busy crime scene is abuzz with the usual dozen or so forensic personnel, coroner staff, and police photographers. And at this gathering, white latex gloves are all the rage. Standing near a glass coffee table at the far corner of the living room, a slender 40-something African-American woman in a brightly colored headband makes notes on her clipboard as she looks down at the deceased, Lisa Paris, a 26-year-old Caucasian redhead, lying flat on her back face up, about 2 feet from the glass coffee table. The deceased lies near the wall at a 45-degree angle, her feet beneath the closed window, with her head farther away from the wall. Her left hand, deathly still, rests on her sternum, a sizable diamond on her ring finger. Her right hand up near her head, as if she had abruptly collapsed while waving goodbye to friends on some distant horizon. About an inch from her right elbow, a patch of blood about the size of a pancake permanently stains the living room's beige indoor carpet. An angry crimson gash above her left eye, with a small amount of foam coming out of her lips. On the table's edge nearest the body, a tiny orange cone marks the location of a dime-sized smudge of blood, presumably that of the deceased. The shroud of the dead, In this case, a faded green t-shirt and pink and orange flannel pajama pants, neither of which match the 4 tiny red fibers found in the victim's hair near the base of her skull, so possibly her attacker was wearing something red. Beltran remains standing, confers with the forensic specialist with the bright headband, as Joe stoops down to more closely inspect the body of the victim. He points to the small blood stain on the glass surface.
She fell down, hit her head on the edge of the table. Struggle, rape?
Headband consults her clipboard.
No obvious signs of rape, fight, maybe. Facial contusions could be from the fall.
In other words, either she fell by herself or someone knocked her down?
All I can give you is what I know.
Beltran stoops down near Joe and points at the foam on the woman's lips.
The foam on the lips, that's purged from an overdose, probably barbiturate.
I see that, thanks.
Focusing on the diamond, Detective Beltran briefly lifts the victim's left hand.
This ring might rule out robbery.
If it's real, it's worth $5,000.
Time of death, 7 hours, 8 hours most.
4 a.m., check for sexual activity.
The 2 detectives stand up.
Female victims, I usually start with the clothes.
Beltran goes upstairs to the bedroom to check out the clothes of the deceased, as Joe stops for a moment to check his smartphone for messages. Nothing. And when he puts in a call to his partner, Detective Frank Smith, Joe gets voicemail.
Frank, this is Joe. Where are you? Call me back when you get this, will you?
We've got a wedding invitation in the kitchen.
Joe starts upstairs, but he's stopped by another forensic specialist.
What's up with the new partner?
Not new, temporary.
A 20-something African-American guy with glasses in a blue LAPD windbreaker with its sleeves rolled up, gesturing behind him to some file boxes on the kitchen table.
3 file boxes.
He hands Joe Friday a blue folder containing 10 or 12 documents.
The victim had 1 file out, money market account worth $250,000.
Standing partway at the steps, Joe looks at the file's contents.
It's $240,000. What's she doing looking at bank accounts? All right, get Muds on her phone. Get these boxes downtown.
$240,000 in the money market account? Still reading the folder, Joe Friday heads up to the bedroom, just as a coroner's assistant tells Beltran the deceased, Lisa Paris, had no sign of sexual trauma, and
no obvious signs of body fluid.
Got $240,000 in the bank.
Good for her.
walking around the king-size bed.
Probably was alone, not expecting anyone.
Beltran approaches the dresser,
Definitely not male company.
Why do you think that?
opens its top drawer, removes neatly folded black and pink lingerie.
Owned some fine lingerie, but she was wearing flannel. I'd say she planned the night on her own.
Someone wakes her up, she opens the door, she knew him.
Joe looks out the window where, down below, he sees 2 officers interviewing a Caucasian male about 30 years of age.
The fiancé?
Yeah, Michael Burned.
Just then, standing in the doorway,
Hey,
a thin forensic tech in his mid-20s wears a dark blue jumpsuit and a cheery disposition.
we got a pill box, champagne in the fridge, Dom Perignon, quarter empty and still bubbly.
The forensic tech gets back to work as Beltran turns to Friday, so it's reasonable to assume, at minimum, with or without her consent, the deceased, Lisa Paris, ingested both champagne and barbiturates.
Alcohol and barbiturates.
Accidental overdose, suicide.
Diamond engagement ring, $250,000 in the bank. Under those circumstances, most people want to stick around.
Money doesn't buy happiness.
Friday and Beltran go downstairs and step out back, where they seek information from the deceased's fiancé, Michael Byrne. Actually 29 years old, the slender Caucasian male wears a black dinner jacket over a chic white button-down shirt, open collar, no necktie. Quick introductions, condolences for his loss, and detectives ask Michael Byrne exactly what was he doing when he found Lisa Paris's body.
I got here around 9. I was picking her up for a friend's wedding. Lisa and I were getting married next month.
You and Lisa weren't living together?
No, she bought the house last year from pictures before they even broke ground, before I even proposed.
This morning you found the door open.
Yeah, and that's not Lisa. She was careful.
When was the last time you saw her or talked to her?
Last night, around 8, I called from the car on my way to the bachelor party. Lisa said that she was going to bed and she'd see me in the morning. Can I call her Dad now?
Her dad. With the assistance of fiancé Michael Byrne, in less than an hour at LA County Medical Center, the 2 detectives meet with next of kin downstairs in the morgue. The light-green metal doors placard reads Personal Identification Room, PIR, number 8, immediately above which there's a small, square-shaped window at head level. Joe swipes his badge, and he and Beltran accompany 3 grieving family members into the morgue's pier number 8. Joe Friday does not object when instinctively, perhaps eager to get this trauma over with. The father, Ted Paris, crosses the width of the room to stand at the enormous observation window, which presents a clear view of the room next door. Stainless steel, cold and sterile by necessity. White countertops, blue tiled walls, black and white faux marble flooring. The working man's attire of someone who owns his own business. Ted Paris wears a loose-fitting black t-shirt with the words U.S. Army in yellow letters across its back. Old faded blue jeans over black steel-toed boots. His clothes are all well-worn but in good condition, clean, dry, and serviceable. Also on hand, the victim's younger sister, 21-year-old Jennifer Paris, is now Ted's only living daughter. Off to the side, fiancé Michael Byrne stands visibly stunned. Understandable, as it was he who first found Lisa Paris's body. Behind the glass, a man in a surgeon's mask wheels in a gurney with a cadaver completely shrouded in a cheap light blue sheet. The morgue worker pulls back the sheet, exposing the face of the 26-year-old redhead. The small, dark red injury above her left eye, now cleaned by technicians, not much bigger than a sunflower seed.
Ted Paris stared at his daughter's body. Like most men, he tried not to cry. He kept his pain inside.
Finally turning around to face Joe, Ted Paris's eyes are red and swollen, and he looks physically sick.
I thought I could take anything.
Can you think of anyone who might have visited Lisa last night?
No, no one.
What can you tell us about her friends?
Ted glances to his one living daughter.
She didn't have a lot of friends.
Wearing a soft, rose-colored sweater, Jennifer Paris is a heavy-set blonde girl with a pretty face.
When she was consulting, she said it was hard to socialize with clients.
The patriarch, Ted Paris, prompts the young man who would have been his son-in-law.
Michael? Some friends from college, sir, but no one here. You know Lisa, she worked hard, kept to herself.
There seems to be some evidence that she took a prescription drug along with a substantial amount of alcohol.
I don't understand. Lisa never used drugs ever. Are you saying she did this on purpose? That she killed herself?
We're saying right now we don't know.
A gentle knock at the door, and Joe turns to look through its small window.
Excuse me.
Then, politely taking their leave, investigators step out to the hallway, where they're met by the medical examiner, Dr. Ramachandran Shah.
You asked about sexual activity.
Our fiancé said he didn't sleep with her last night. Did you find semen?
Something else.
An olive-skinned man in his 60s, Dr. Shah wears baby blue regular surgeon scrubs, and an untied paper surgeon's mask hangs loose beneath the ME's bearded chin.
Something odd in the spectrum. Residue from two different types of latex and polyurethane.
The three mystery solvers round the corner just as the morgue assistant wheels the body up to a sort of sterilized workbench with various liquids, plastic-wrapped syringes, glass cases, and weight scales in small, medium, and large.
Types of latex and polyurethane.
Well, latex would be the condoms. What's the polyurethane?
It's used in condoms for men with a latex allergy.
Any other explanation?
Not that I can think of, unless the same man was wearing 3 different condoms, and that's not likely.
So she slept with 3 different men the same night.
3 men, yes, but slept with? It's true there's no sign of sexual trauma. However, overdosed on barbiturates, Lisa Paris would have been unable to resist the 3 men, which could make this a form of date rape leading to the woman's death. By using condoms, they removed an otherwise vital source of DNA evidence. Also, they left behind no fingerprints nor body hairs. These guys were thorough. At least for the moment, the body of Lisa Paris is clean of all unidentified trace evidence. The 2 detectives thank Dr. Shah and ask him to keep them posted. When they get back to the station, detectives get a message from Financial Investigation Unit. FIU has audited those 3 boxes found on the kitchen table containing the financial records of the late Lisa Paris. everything consolidated by FIU into a single 15-page draft summary, mercifully written in layman's terms. Just the money market accounts alone totaled $240,000. You can buy a house for that. It'll be interesting to see what other financial clues accountants found in those 3 boxes. House mortgage, IRS W-2s, bank statements, credit cards. Had she and Michael Burns signed a prenuptial agreement? 20 minutes later at FIU, Detective Beltran signs for her copy, takes the folder and returns to the office, where she finds lead detective Joe Friday sitting at his desk, talking on the phone. Looks important. Visiting from a different division, Beltran does not have a desk of her own, so she stands unobtrusively, holding the FIU draft summary, waiting for Joe to finish his phone call.
They haven't given any prognosis? Well, that's how it is with doctors, professional caution. Just stay and deal with it. That's all.
Noticing Beltran,
Don't worry about things around here.
Friday gestures with his index finger. Be right there.
All right, Frank, just take it day by day, all right? Now take it easy. Goodbye.
Leaning back in his chair, he nods to Beltran.
My partner's father, stroke.
Sorry to hear that.
Looking down, Joe writes something in his notebook.
What'd they find in the boxes at her house?
Beltran casually leans against his desk.
What do you think the house cost?
Around 4.
365. How much do you think she put down?
The way you say it, I'm guessing a lot.
She nods to the folder in her hand.
No down payment. All cash.
Tax returns tell us where she got it?
Well, there are no tax returns. It's the one thing that's missing.
26 years old, worth 600 grand.
Beltran spots an extra folding chair next to the file cabinet.
Not many women her age make that kind of money on their feet.
Thought occurred to me.
But before she can grab it,
Go ahead, use Frank's desk.
he points to the empty desk in front of his own.
So, a prostitute?
Beltran takes a seat, and the two sit facing each other.
Working high in John's?
Maybe. I buy the father doesn't know. He lives down in El Segundo. She could hide it, but the fiancé.
A man can get married and not know his fiancée is a hooker.
If you say so.
Tough questions to ask that young man.
I'm leaving that to you. I'll take the tougher ones to the father.
Investigating the death of Lisa Paris, Detective Joe Friday radios he is currently 1023 at Paris Auto Parts, a licensed junkyard in Northridge, owned and operated by the deceased's father, Ted Paris. Scraps of metal, small motors, various housings, all methodically categorized and readily accessible, used parts from cars, trucks, and motorcycles, as well as refrigerators, garbage disposals, lawnmowers, and washing machines, pretty much anything metal, usually with moving parts. Inside the small single-structure office building, Joe stands casually at the service desk, taking in his surroundings as he speaks with Ted Paris. Behind Friday, near the door, an NFL calendar hangs on the wall above the fax machine. In his conversation with Joe Friday, the independent businessman speaks from behind the service desk as he works. On the far side of the room, there's a well-used table vise next to an iron lathe and a glass-enclosed sandblaster. Its heavy-grade black rubber gloves hang from the front inside out. By Joe's estimate, Ted Paris stands 5'8" on a slightly overweight 220-pound frame. Ted's clipboard is made of lightweight, yellow transparent plastic, and it currently holds about a dozen, maybe 20 pages. Busying himself, Ted Paris sorts tiny cardboard boxes, inventory, among wall-to-wall metal shelving units. Though his demeanor is compliant and cooperative, the 56-year-old Army veteran seems nervous, not suspicious, but disorganized, clearly uncomfortable speaking about his Lisa. Near the window where Ted is standing, a bulletin board with 24 or so family pictures, each glossy, held in place by a thumbtack. Another wall displays framed state and county business licenses, OSHA compliance certificates, and proclamations of praise from the American Legion and the Better Business Bureau. When the detective asks the businessman if he can borrow a picture of his daughter, Ted pivots, looks thoughtfully at the bulletin board, considers all the photos.
We got hundreds of these.
Ted detaches one of the photos.
This is my favorite.
And hands it to Joe Friday.
When her mother was alive, she looked just like her.
Projecting an air of great respect, Joe holds the photo, regards the image of Lisa Paris thoughtfully.
She was a lovely girl, Ted.
Just then, Jennifer Paris, sister of the deceased, enters the office and retrieves a fax from the machine's out tray.
Dad, I put a sign on the back door, too.
Yeah, we have to go down to the funeral home. What else can I tell you?
Lisa seemed to be doing well financially.
She was consulting.
Both men look at Jennifer.
Office management. She
also did a lot of lousy temp jobs. She took what she learned and made something good of it.
Why were they so restless? What was their hurry? I thought maybe Ted Paris was being strong for his daughter. It's what fathers did, protect their children. Especially when they only have one left.
Army brats, you know, like mine, they move around a lot. They learn a lot of survival skills.
Did you ever discuss her income?
Well, she wanted to have a down payment on a house. I offered to help. She said she had it covered. I was real proud of her. Look, we really gotta go.
I locked the gate. I'll open it for you.
Joe thanks Ted Paris for his time and follows Jennifer out to the parking lot.
Is, something wrong?
How do you mean?
Why are you asking about Lisa's money?
Just trying to get a picture of her life.
Old cars everywhere in sight, from fully roadworthy to sold for parts only, and all points in between.
She was a really good person. You should know that. She really was.
No one said she wasn't. Why all the defensiveness? Once again offering condolences for her loss and thanking Jennifer for her time. Joe gets back in his car and returns to the office. During this time, Detective Denise Beltran is in Canoga Park wrapping up her interview with the victim's fiancé Michael Byrne, who leaves his TV on and fails to offer his guest a seat, which is fine by Beltran. Alone with this man in his third-story apartment, the detective prefers to remain standing and within reach of the door. Seemingly remorseful, but lacking any sense of urgency for the investigation, the 29-year-old Caucasian bachelor slouches on an old, tattered green living room sofa, his elevated feet resting on a small, cheap, square-shaped wooden table. Her pen poised on her notepad, Detective Beltran asks how he and Lisa first met. Michael Byrne says they met as college students at University of Oregon.
In Portland. I wanted to get married the day we graduated, but Lisa, she said she wanted...
He stands up.
I don't know what she wanted. She said she had to find herself. She wanted her freedom.
The University of Oregon alumnus turns off his television.
You know, when girls talk about freedom, it can mean an interest in someone else.
Not with Lisa, no. It was
Then steps into the kitchen,
all about her career.
opens his fridge door,
About a year and a half ago, she called out of the blue.
and retrieves a beer, offering nothing to his guest.
We started talking, emailing, and I got a job transfer here.
Demonstrates his proficiency with a bottle opener.
Tell me what you know about her work.
He holds his beer without drinking.
Consulting. She built the business herself.
He puts down the bottle.
There was something about Lisa. People trusted her.
This may sound strange. Just to confirm our toxicology, what did you and Lisa use for birth control?
She was on the pill. Why would that matter?
This just for the record.
Well, what kind of record? Is there something you know about her you're not telling me?
Beltran stands firm. It's standard procedure. Homicide investigations require asking uncomfortable questions. She calmly apologizes to Michael for this unfortunate necessity, thanks Michael for his time, and departs his third-floor apartment. The victim, Lisa Paris, had suffered severe blunt force trauma to the head, and she had ingested barbiturates, whether intentionally, compelled forcefully against her will, or slipped to her secretly without her knowledge. If nothing else, the pill box recovered might have the fingerprints of one of her attackers, and possibly saliva on the champagne bottle if perchance an excited killer wanted to take a celebratory swig. And what about those 4 red fibers found in her hair at the base of her skull? Hoping for such clues as to who might have killed Lisa Paris, Friday and Beltran meet up at Police Forensics Lab, where specialist Ebony Schiller has reviewed all trace evidence collected at the crime scene. Anxious for something they can work with, Friday takes point. DNA, shoe prints, saliva, bloodstains, never mind Lisa Paris. They need evidence of who else was there. But Schiller says everything collected came from Lisa Paris. There's no evidence anyone else was there. Detectives are shocked. Nothing?
Clean. The place was spotless.
Someone had to walk on the carpet.
They didn't leave anything behind.
Schiller walks detectives over to a stainless steel table with 3 items, each separated about 6 inches apart.
Pillbox, champagne bottle. They found the cork in the garbage. All of them her prints only.
Well, that would mean she opened it herself and took the pills.
You think she had company who wore gloves?
Well, what about fibers? The flannel pajamas.
In short, there wasn't any. Standing 5'8", 160 pounds, Ebony Schiller, a 50-year-old African-American scientist, wears a soft purple knit sweater blouse beneath her white lab coat. Regarding those 4 red fibers found in the deceased's hair near the base of her skull, just because they're not consistent with what the victim was wearing, that doesn't necessarily indicate a second person in the room. For instance, it's possible Lisa Paris owned some other garment made of the same materials. And with that, Schiller hands a printout to Joe Friday.
4 red wool fibers they found a flannel shirt in her drawer.
Anyone who cleans up that good can come by my place.
Unless no one else was there.
The following morning at Robbery Homicide, Friday and Beltran sit at their desks facing each other.
Confused, Joe shakes his head.
There's something I'm not getting here. Ted Paris said his daughter had her down payment covered. Think he knew she paid cash?
There's a lot he didn't know about his daughter.
Joe flips through a few pages.
Or he knew and didn't want us to know.
He locates the mobile usage details, or MUDs.
8 p.m., telephone call to Lisa Paris's house from a cell phone.
The fiancé on the way to his bachelor party.
He hands the open file to Beltran.
3 a.m., an hour before she dies, she calls the fiancé's cell phone, 5-second call.
She lays it on the desk open face and reviews closely that 3 a.m. phone call from Lisa Paris to Michael Byrne.
Wants to know if the stripper comes out of a cake. I don't know, but it went straight to voicemail.
Shouldn't that have said missed call?
Completely alone in a 2-story house, why would Lisa Paris telephone her fiancé at 3 o'clock in the morning?
Did he return it?
Never.
Anytime someone calls at 3 a.m., that's suspicious. The fact Michael never called her back, even more so.
She calls her fiancé at 3 a.m. He never returns the call. The way he dotes on her?
Add to that, why had Michael Byrne not mentioned this yesterday when detectives spoke to him at the crime scene? Had it just slipped his mind? Not likely. Also, why was her front door open? It had not been broken into, nor had its lock been picked. So, most likely, Lisa had opened the door sometime after she had gone to bed at 8 p.m., but before her death at 4 a.m.
An 8-hour window.
Well, there's nothing to suggest she opened the door right at 3 a.m. It's possible there's some connection between that 3 a.m. phone call and Lisa opening her front door to, well, fiancé Michael Byrne claims he was not there until the following morning at 9 a.m. when he found her body. So that leaves yet another unanswered question. If not Michael Byrne, then to whom would a 26-year-old woman like Lisa Paris voluntarily open her door late at night after she had gone to bed? Carrying a small stack of paperwork folded in thirds, a 30-something woman approaches Friday and Beltran.
We put a fast-track subpoena into the IRS for the tax returns. I'll have them by the end of the day. And there's this. She had a safe deposit box. I got a court order to open it.
The ID badge clipped to the gray vest, which matches her business slacks. Detective 2 Connie Hubble hands the paperwork to Joe Friday.
Short form last will and testament. The kind you buy at a stationery store.
Friday scans the last will and testament of Lisa Paris.
Good.
Sole beneficiary, the fiancé Michael Byrne.
Another significant fact Michael Byrne inexplicably failed to mention. In a very short time, Friday and Beltran are standing inside his small apartment, affording the young bachelor a chance to speak with more candor. Specifically,
Are you aware you were the beneficiary of her will?
I didn't know that, no. What does this have to do with what happened to Lisa?
You said you last spoke to her around 8 p.m.
Yeah, that's right.
She called your cell phone at 3 a.m. You didn't call her back.
Michael sits down at a cheap dinette table in his kitchen.
Michael, you seem like a bright guy, and it seems you really loved her. Aren't you wondering what these questions are about?
Look, I've been really messed up with this.
Your fiancé calls at 3 a.m. She's dead an hour later. Why didn't you tell us?
She didn't leave a message.
The bachelor party. When did you leave?
Between 12:30 and 1. I went straight home. I can't believe this. I can't believe you think.
No more messing around. Joe walks over to the dinette and stands over Michael Byrne, toes of their shoes very nearly touching.
The groom's name.
A very nervous Michael Byrne claims his friend, the groom's name is Roy Williams, a friend of his. Skillful interviewing by detectives Friday and Beltran reveals the bachelor party was planned by the groom himself. Only about half dozen guests attended, all men, and it was held at the home of Roy Williams and his fiancée, Irene, in the working-class neighborhood of Panorama City. Wait, Joe checks for understanding. The groom planned the party himself? Michael explains Roy Williams is a good guy, but he doesn't have a lot of friends. Social issues. Michael provides cops with Roy's phone number and home address, but just getting that much was like pulling teeth.
Michael Byrne had left out way too much. Whatever people say, you listen for something else. What they leave out. We called ahead to the man who had thrown his own bachelor party. His new bride was expecting us.
And judging by his absence, so too was the groom, Roy Williams, who's nowhere to be seen. Had Michael Byrne just tipped off his friend the cops were coming to see him? For now, detectives will reserve judgment, as Roy's new wife, Irene, wearing a yellow long-sleeve flower print top over denim bell-bottoms, welcomes Friday and Beltran into their modest, single-story ranch-style two-bedroom. A tall, unhealthily thin Irene Williams is 5'10", 130 pounds. The 32-year-old blonde gestures to two old armchairs and a reupholstered dark green couch as the three people enter the room and sit down comfortably. Detectives congratulate the newlywed on her and Roy's recent wedding and explain they're investigating the death of Lisa Paris. Reading from his notes, Joe confirms the deceased Lisa Paris and her fiancé Michael Byrne had been on the guest list for Irene and Roy's wedding the day before yesterday, Sunday. Very matter-of-factly, Mrs. Williams says yes, that's correct. Denise Beltran asks Irene when she first suspected something was not right. Mrs. Williams considers the question thoughtfully, then says most likely it was that they
never showed up at the church.
How well did you know Lisa?
We'd only met her once. I liked her right away. She was so stylish. Funny, I sort of envied her. Now this.
Quietly, Denise Beltran is certain Irene Williams is lying. The Latina detective asks,
So you weren't around for this bachelor party thing?
I put the food out and then left. Why are you asking about that?
We have to establish where everyone was.
I have to tell you, Michael loved Lisa. He, worshipped her.
When do you expect your husband back?
Late tonight.
Detectives both stand up, as does Irene, and Joe hands her his business card.
We'd appreciate it if you'd have your husband give us a call. Thank you.
Friday and Beltran see themselves to the door and walk back out to their unmarked squad car.
She was protecting her friend, but from what? Michael Byrne was evasive, but that was all. I didn't believe he'd kill for money. Didn't make sense.
Then it occurs to Joe he might ought to share these thoughts with his partner.
You know what does make sense? If he killed her, he had to call it in. Because if he doesn't show to pick her up that morning, he looks guilty.
But it still doesn't give us motive.
The lead detective answers his cell phone.
Friday. One client? Where? Thanks.
Ending his phone call, he puts the device in his pocket, then nods to Denise Beltran. That was Detective Connie Hubble, who'd done that IRS fast-track subpoena.
Lisa Paris's tax returns. Her income from her consulting services all came from one place. Nash Ellis Holdings, Chatsworth.
It's shortly after nightfall as Friday and Beltran find themselves in a sprawling industrial park, driving through a maze of uniformly huge, featureless buildings. Finally, detectives locate the correct nondescript building. Heralded by a large metal sign bolted into the gray painted brick at the corner of the building, Nash Ellis Holdings is the only business in view, with 3 vehicles taking up half its available parking. Namely, a new model red Ford Mustang convertible, a black BMW with a sunroof, and something covered in an off-white dust cover. Also near the front door, there's a bright yellow Kawasaki Ninja 250 crotch rocket resting on its kickstand. Looks like a magazine cover. Someone's got money. diamond imports, space technology, pharmaceuticals, whether legal or otherwise. Cops pull into an available spot, and though parking enforcement seems unlikely, just to be on the safe side, Joe pulls down their visor banner announcing their presence as LAPD personnel on official police business. When they get to the front main entrance, not surprisingly, its large metal door is locked. Joe knocks on the door, then with his left hand reaches into his jacket and pulls out his badge. When the door opens, detectives are speaking to a disinterested-looking brunette girl of college age, wearing a rose-colored halter top over loose-fitting black jeans.
Can I help you?
LAPD, Detective Friday, Detective Beltran. We're looking for anyone who hired Lisa Paris.
There's no Lisa Paris here. I'll get Mr. Nash. You can wait outside.
But quickly, Joe pulls open the door, and detectives follow Ms. Haltertop into an extravagant, professionally decorated office lobby.
I'll get Mr. Nash.
She wordlessly disappears down a carpeted hallway as detectives wait in the lobby. Just to be safe, in sync, both officers wordlessly unclip their sidearms while instinctively taking in their immediate surroundings. Larger and more spacious than the waiting room at Joe's dentist, and a whole lot pricier in its decor. A shiny glass coffee table with magazines between two deeply padded white vinyl armchairs, flanking a similarly upholstered couch on the other side of the table. Instead of windows looking out, framed laser print movie posters thoughtfully illuminated, each by its own tiny spotlight from above. But the movies promoted are clearly not intended for all audiences. High-end erotica and adult entertainment with names like Oral Fixation, Impure Thoughts, Liberty Call, and Forbidden.
So that's how she made 6 figures consulting.
Nash Ellis Holdings. A fancy name for a company making this. Judging from the number of titles, they were practically cornering the market.
Over on the adjacent wall, one of the other laser prints catches Joe's attention. From looking at its movie poster, the film Saturday Night Leather features a sexy platinum blonde who wears heavy makeup, a 2-piece bikini made of black leather, and not much else. Pointing it out to Beltran, in the lower right corner, Friday reads the actress's stage name.
J.C. Roberts.
But her face is unmistakable.
Look familiar?
Without the wig and makeup, Lisa Paris.
A porn star.
A porn star. Amazing how one previously unknown detail can change the entire premise of an investigation. The coroner, Dr. Shaw, had noticed condom residue from polyurethane and 2 types of latex. So what once looked like some 3-man date rape is more likely just another day at the office. True, but homicide detectives still need to know why this 26-year-old woman is dead. Just then, some openly annoyed businessman enters the room, introducing himself as executive producer Joseph Joey Nash. With a frustrated sigh, the 50-something Caucasian businessman gives the impression detectives are interrupting him. He wears a button-down white business shirt with his wine-colored paisley tie loosened at the collar. More reluctantly compliant than genuinely friendly. The exec producer escorts cops down a carpeted hallway, hardly listening as detectives explain they're investigating the death of one of his actresses, Lisa Paris, also known as J.C. Roberts. The 3 people enter the office of Joseph Joey Nash. Taking a seat behind his large mahogany desk, the exec producer introduces the younger man sitting on a couch as his associate producer Kevin Ellis, who immediately stands to greet them. A clean-shaven 40-something white guy, producer Kevin Ellis, wears charcoal slacks and a white button-down business shirt, no tie. 2 high-stakes captains of industry. They are professionalism commensurate with their evident success. Opening her notebook, Denise Beltran asks if anyone had been bothering or arguing with Lisa Paris. No, both men answer to the best of their knowledge no one had a problem with the deceased porn star. Joe asks both men if Lisa Paris had done or said anything unusual the last time they had seen her. No, nothing unusual. The 26-year-old adult film star was engaged to be married. She seemed happy and in good spirits. Behind his desk, with a frustrated sigh, Joey Nash says it's too bad about this woman's death, but A, if it didn't happen on the premises of Nash Ellis Holdings, then B, it's not their responsibility. But detectives had never suggested either. And this woman had a name, Lisa Paris, or if they prefer, J.C. Roberts. Taking a sip of water, the first part of Nash Ellis Holdings continues his callous disclaimer.
We didn't hurt anyone. Cigarettes and liquor killed people. No one ever masturbated themselves to death.
Joey Nash, porn king, with a wall full of awards from the adult film industry. Just an ordinary guy from Encino making garbage for a living.
We run a legitimate business. We serve as a legitimate need.
You wouldn't be surprised to run into him at the country club. Didn't bother him what he did. Probably didn't bother his friends either. It was profitable. It was legal. What we thought didn't matter either. Unless, of course, it had something to do with Lisa Paris's death.
Lisa started as an office temp. She wanted to make more money.
So you bump her up to J.C. Roberts' porn star?
Oh, no one ever forced her into anything. She was a typical army brat, you know? Lost, never felt like she belonged. She saw the money that our top players got, and she wanted it.
Made a name, got a piece of her films, everybody won.
And that was worth?
Last year, around $300,000.
How much did you make?
More, with a lot more risk. And in what business is that any different?
Where were you both Saturday night?
I was home with wife and kids. We played charades, and the dinner guests left at 2.
San Francisco. You want tickets?
Was Lisa here Saturday night?
Her last day. She was quitting. We wished her well. We'd all had a good run.
Last people who saw Lisa here.
I think she said her goodbyes on the set.
Rotating his chair, the executive producer removes a white 3-ring binder and lays it on his desk open face. He puts on his glasses and reads its contents. Says from 9 till 11 a.m., J.C. Lisa Paris was filming a menage a trois with 2 male actors, Benjamin Andrews and Nels Fagerstrom. The 50-something producer suggests Friday and Beltran come back tomorrow morning where they can have full run of the studio, talk to anyone they like. Nash Ellis Holdings has nothing to hide, and they suggest detectives start with actor Nels Fagerstrom. Easier than getting a warrant. And Joe Friday accepts the executive producer's offer. The following morning, detectives return to a fully operational movie production company. Industrial-grade pulleys and cables, stage lights, wardrobe, craft services, a fire extinguisher near every door in sight. Busy stagehands working with various props, equipment, and swaths of material. 2 free weights and a barbell in the corner near the men's locker room door. In the opposite direction, 2 women wearing t-shirts and jeans and white cotton gloves, meticulously attaching translucent orange filters to an enormous square-shaped floodlight assembly. A few minutes of asking around, and detectives quickly catch up with the male actor Nels Fagerstrom, a muscle-bound giant who stands 6'3" on a proportionately slender 220-pound frame. With his wavy blonde hair and chiseled physique, the 30-year-old adult film star could easily pass for a modern-day Viking, and it's highly doubtful anyone would make fun of his tight pink t-shirt. More compassionate than his executive producer Joey Nash, Nels Fagerstrom says J.C. Roberts was a good person, and the male actor appears genuinely upset by the tragic loss of his colleague. Detectives ask if anyone had been angry at Lisa Paris. Nels, his friends call him Niels, says no, not that he ever saw. Because of social persecution, the adult film community tend to be a tight-knit group. Detectives ask, had she done or said anything unusual or out of the ordinary? Niels Fagerstrom says, no, nothing. Then he stops and says, well, her last day she did not have medical paperwork. Joe Friday's response is more of a question. You mean for sexually transmitted diseases? Fagerstrom nods yes. Just as truck drivers must at all time carry paperwork confirming they tested negative for drugs. Similarly, adult film stars must carry paperwork confirming they test negative for STDs. Denise Beltran asks, if a porn star does not have such paperwork, well, what did they do Saturday? Niels Fagerstrom says at that point, filming is at the discretion of the actors doing the scene. They have 3 choices. They can postpone and reschedule the shoot, which means no one gets paid for that day. 2, they can shoot the scene wearing condoms, which everyone hates. Or 3, if the actors so desire, they can take the risk and shoot the scene without protection, which no one ever does. Remembering the medical examiner's observation about multiple types of latex present, Beltran asks if they filmed the scene using condoms.
Fagerstrom nods confirmation. Yes, of course. Referring to his notes, Joe Friday asks where they can find the other male actor, Benjamin Andrews. Fagerstrom smiles. Benji's off today, but if it'll help. Fagerstrom points to a shorter bald man at the far side of the studio. Evan Sherman is the set manager, and he was running camera that day. A few more questions produce nothing readily useful. Detectives thank Fagerstrom for his time, hand him their business card, and say please call if he remembers anything else which might help. When they approach set manager Evan Sherman, the short bald man is rolling up a bullwhip and putting it into a small green canvas bag. Approximately 40 years of age, Sherman wears a purple designer sweater rolled up at the elbows and faded comfort fit blue jeans.
Satin sheets. They show better on camera.
Evan Sherman then walks to the far side of the king-size bed and pulls off all its bedding, then removes the red sheets.
These things are a fortune.
And throws them in the trash.
Unlike the whips and chains?
Well, that stuff's reusable. Satins. Use them a day, throw them away. Saturday. If I remember right, JC...
Her name was Lisa.
Not around here. JC. She was pretty firm on that. Let's see. She did Niels and Benji in a three-way in Studio 1. They left for the day. Then we shot her with Jill about an hour later in here.
Jill. Jill's a woman.
It's a weird business, but yeah, we don't have any men named Jill.
A few more minutes with Evan Sherman reveals Jill's last name is Winthrop. She's been with Nash Ellis Holdings for about a year. And detectives are in luck, as she's here today filming a scene on stage 9. If they'd like to talk to her, the set manager quickly checks his wristwatch, says she'll be available in about 20 minutes. Pointing at the appropriate door, Sherman suggests cops wait for Jill in the dressing room. It's open. Entering the expansive room, cops notice it's designed for multiple actresses, and there's another internal door marked showers. The adjacent wall hosts a row of 3 makeup stations, each with its own folding chair, hair dryer, and lighted mirror. Waiting for Jill Winthrop, cops decide to take a seat. On the wall, next to the shower door, above the light switch is one of those black and white cat clocks, slowly wagging its tail, synced with its sneaky eyes shifting left to right. The old-style analog clock on its belly shows the time as 10:50 a.m. Extra folding chairs folded and wedged between a tiny refrigerator and the wall. A pair of knee-high white leather boots draped over the top of a bright neon pink plastic couch, above which 3 wigs hang on wall-mounted hooks. One of them looks like that platinum blonde wig cops saw in that J.C. Roberts movie poster last night. The door marked showers opens, and Jill Winthrop exits wearing only a bra and panties as she uses a clean dry towel to briskly dry her hair and shoulders. Showing their badge and police ID, detectives introduce themselves and explain they're investigating the death of her co-worker, Lisa Paris, or J.C. Roberts. The 30-year-old actress drops the towel on a chair, leans in close to one of the mirrors, and carefully removes her left earring. Referring to her notes, Detective Beltran says the deceased J.C. Roberts had done a threesome scene with Niels and Benji just prior to her doing the shoot with Jill Winthrop. Now, here in the dressing room, detectives ask the adult film star if the deceased J.C. Roberts had worked with any other men that day. No. Jill Winthrop confirms that last scene she and J.C. Roberts had done together Saturday was just the 2 of them alone, no men. As Jill describes the video they were filming that day, it's not that Friday and Beltran are judgmental, more confused. If there were no men present, then how...
Here, we use a strap-on, plastic.
Polyurethane.
Yeah, it's a John Holmes model, actually.
She gestures, nodding her head slightly to the left.
It's in the prop room if you need it.
We might.
I never got that whole thing, but I guess there are just some guys out there who like to watch women pretend to be men. Hey, it's a living.
So you were Lisa's final scene?
Yeah. God, it's hard to believe. Word I hear is suicide.
That makes sense to you?
No. I mean, she left in great spirits. She retired her wig, gave it to me. I gave her this bottle of Dom Perignon I got from some fan. Hell, we had a good laugh about it.
She seemed happy when she left.
Yeah, thrilled. I mean, glad to be getting out. I mean, this guy Michael, the house,
So she was alone at the end of the night.
She said she was gonna go put the Dom on ice.
With one fluid motion,
Maybe make mimosas for breakfast.
Jill Winthrop puts on a short-sleeved denim dress,
She and Michael were going to a wedding.
fastens it snaps down the front.
Look, if you want to see the scene we did, they're cutting it now. But if you don't have any more questions,
grabs her purse,
The kids are with the sitter and I gotta get home.
and goes home for the day. Today's visit to Nash Ellis offered little insight as to how or why Lisa Paris is dead. Coming up on 2 p.m. now as detectives leave the warehouse-sized building and walk back out to their unmarked squad car. West Valley is usually the hottest place in Los Angeles County, and this afternoon is no exception. Beltran gets behind the wheel as Joe rides shotgun, and detectives roll down their windows and buckle their seatbelts. They continued brainstorming on the drive back to robbery homicide. By all accounts, Lisa Paris was living the good life. Her co-worker, Jill Winthrop, said she was quote-unquote in good spirits. And why not? Making more money than Friday and Beltran combined. She had purchased her own 2-story house. She was loved by her family and engaged to be married. Considering what they know about her finances, as well as what they don't, it's possible Lisa Paris would have been set for life by the time she was 30. It's hard to think she'd kill herself. However, sitting in the passenger seat, her lead partner is starting to reconsider things from the ground up, reviewing their actual evidence collected, or lack thereof. Friday points out they've got no unidentified fingerprints, hairs, perspiration, DNA, nothing. Either they put out an APB for some invisible man who's bald with no fingerprints who hovers above the ground to avoid leaving tracks in the carpet, or, objectively, detectives must consider the possibility Lisa Paris killed herself, maybe accidentally. As Sigmund Freud observed, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. No, Beltran respectfully disagrees. Even if she had killed herself, why would she open her front door after she had gone to bed Saturday night? For the sake of discussion, Joe plays defense attorney. Maybe she couldn't sleep. She forgot to check her mailbox. Maybe stepped out for some fresh air. Maybe she wanted to look at the beautiful stars. Who knows? Friday agrees there are suspicious elements and commends his temporary partner for her tenacity. Sometimes a skilled killer, especially after he's done time, can learn to cover his tracks so thoroughly that there's just not enough evidence to convict. But Beltran continues. Why did her front door remain wide open for hours until her fiancé Michael Byrne arrived later that morning at 9 a.m.? He was supposed to take Lisa to his friend's wedding. Friday checks his notes. Michael's friends. Who was it? The newlyweds, Roy and Irene Williams. Yes, the man who had planned his own bachelor party. Roy Williams mysteriously out when detectives paid a visit to his house yesterday. And Roy Williams still has not called them back, even though they left their business card requesting he do so as soon as possible? Social issues, yeah. It's no wonder Roy doesn't have many friends. Not many friends. Hadn't young Jennifer Paris said the same about her deceased older sister? Joe checks his notes. She didn't have a lot of friends, said it was hard to socialize with clients. Clients? Yeah, little sister Jennifer said that. So, nothing etched in stone, but it seems likely this 21-year-old witness was aware of her older sister's profession. Although the baby of the family, legally, Jennifer Paris is an adult, and cops agree to follow up with this immediate family member sometime later when her dad, Ted, is not around. And regardless of the porn angle, why would Lisa Paris, a non-drug user, suddenly load up on barbiturates within hours, if not minutes, of her demise? With these types of anomalies, common suicide seems less likely. Somehow, there's something missing here. Also, was it the overdose or the head trauma that actually stopped the life of Lisa Paris? With this question in mind, Friday asks Beltran to drop him off at the station so she can drive over to the coroner's office and see if Dr. Shaw has anything new. In the meantime, Joe wants to brief their immediate supervisor, Captain Ruth Hagerman. Half an hour later, downstairs in the morgue, Denise Beltran waits as Dr. Shaw opens the hermetically sealed door, pulls out the cadaver of Lisa Paris, and removes its plastic covering. Standing over the cold, dry body of the deceased, the medical examiner tells the detective the only new observation is he was able to identify the exact barbiturate Lisa Paris had ingested Saturday night. Phenobarbital, an anti-seizure medication mostly prescribed to young children, but in high dosage. Phenobarbital is a commonly used agent for the lethal injection of death row inmates. In World War II, as a suicide pill, phenobarbital was issued to military officers of the Empire of Japan, should the need arise. Today, now in the morgue, he shrugs. Based on all the evidence he's seen, Dr. Shaw thinks Lisa Paris's murderer was Lisa Paris. For whatever reason, the 26-year-old woman killed herself. Beltran disagrees, saying she has reason to believe Lisa Paris was the victim of foul play.
I'm telling you, it's suicide. I don't know what else to call it. Is it possible someone hit her? There are no hand or finger marks.
Maybe someone forced her to take the phenobarbital.
Gently opening the cadaver's hand, Shaw points at its fingers and palm.
Powder residue from the pills on the right hand, which would say she took them herself.
You're saying she took the pills and passed out?
People are upset. They're not thinking.
We know she wasn't upset, Dr. Shaw.
You see this every day. Alcohol, drugs, head wound.
The medical examiner picks up an open folder.
They're all contributing factors.
Signs the appropriate block.
Now, I'll keep the record open, undetermined. But I'd say suicide, accidental or otherwise.
Then hands Beltran his report on 26-year-old Lisa Paris. Official cause of death to be determined, but most likely suicidal overdose of phenobarbital. It's early evening when Beltran gets back to robbery homicide. In the distance, a door opens, and it's Joe Friday gesturing for her to come join the discussion. At the center of the building's 4th floor, alongside the elevators, the inner office window's horizontal blinds are down, but their open slats allow Beltran to see her lead partner standing, talking with a professionally dressed woman about the same age as Joe. Chain of command is cop second nature. Beltran gives the report to Joe, who looks at it briefly, then hands it to their immediate supervisor, Captain Ruth Hagerman. As Hagerman reads its cover sheet, Joe closes the door.
I'll buy suicide. Accidental, intentional, I'll accept it.
Wearing a powder blue business suit, the gray-blonde LAPD captain opens the folder and begins scanning the report.
Then what's the problem? The fiancé.
She called him at 3 o'clock in the morning. Why didn't he call her back?
You're gonna press a homicide based on that?
Her life was okay.
On freshly vacuumed dark blue carpet, the 3 officers stand between 2 armchairs positioned at an angle, in front of the captain's slightly cluttered desk.
She had champagne, ready to celebrate. Why down it with barbiturates?
When you figure out why people kill themselves, I'll get you a job on the hotline. What do we tell the father? Everything. Including how she made her money?
Hagerman gives the report back to Joe Friday.
We don't keep secrets from the family, and give him the coroner's opinion.
Steps behind her desk.
Case closed.
And takes a seat. She gestures to leave the door open, and with a respectful nod to the boss, Friday and Beltran exit the office and return to their desks. A discouraging way to end their investigation. Despite unusual circumstances and both cops' zeal for justice, in the absence of evidence to the contrary, at least in this case, it appears the deceased actually took her own life. Doesn't make it any less tragic. Joe sits at his desk and lets out a heavy sigh. Still standing, Beltran holds the open report with both hands as she looks at the case file's picture of Lisa Paris. The extremely wealthy 26-year-old Caucasian with short red hair and minimal makeup smiles back at Beltran.
You ever wonder how many?
She closes the report.
How many like her come here with these dreams?
Yeah.
So end of case? File it?
No,
Still at his desk, he extends an open hand.
I'll hang on to it a while. I'll break it to Ted Paris tomorrow.
Beltran gives him the file. Putting on his glasses, he drops it in front of him, props an elbow on the edge of the desk, and rests his chin in his palm. Beltran leans against an unoccupied metal desk.
You know, families never get over it.
Still seated, he turns to face her.
My cousin didn't make med school. Depression, left a note and everything. Family still calls it an accident.
Years ago, a friend of mine drove out to a garage in the middle of nowhere.
Joe turns back to his desk.
Closed the door.
And looks down at the folder.
Turned on the ignition.
Why'd he do it?
She. I don't know why.
Just then, Detective Connie Hubble approaches.
Hey, you guys interview a Joseph Nash?
The adult film producer, Joey Nash, or as Friday knows him,
Porn King.
Devonshire Division just called. They found your card on his desk.
But Friday and Beltran are homicide.
Why would they be investigating?
Then a nod of recognition. Oh. As Hubble confirms, the dead body of Joey Nash has just been found in the parking lot of his Chatsworth media studio. looks like homicide. As hot as it is by day, West Valley can get just as cold by night. Detectives don their jackets, leave the building, and at the darker end of a Wednesday evening rush hour, they make their way out to Chatsworth in about half an hour. Nighttime once again, as detectives drive into the sprawling terrain of large gray buildings. But unlike last night, this time Nash Ellis Holdings is much easier to locate with the assistance of the flashing lights unique to a police crime scene. Parking behind a black and white squad car, Friday and Beltran put on their white latex gloves as they exit the vehicle. Detectives recognize that black BMW from last night, on top of which the body of Joey Nash laying face down, outstretched arms extended straight forward like Superman, head down, his face pressed against the glass, buried between his right bicep and the car's tinted windshield. Wearing expensive brown leather loafers, Joey Nash's feet hang limp on the front of the hood just above the grill. Vanity license plate reads Sex Toys, spelled with 2 X's. At first glance, it looks like the executive producer might have been thrown from the top of his company's 2-story building, but on closer inspection it's evident that's not what happened. The car itself has no body damage to its highly polished black exterior. Also, the victim's hands are violently clamped at the wrists in the car's closed sunroof. Ducking beneath the yellow crime tape, detectives are greeted by a clean-shaven 30-something guy with short blonde hair.
Shot in the back of the head.
Identified by his clip-on laminated police ID, forensic specialist Andrew Mark wears a dark blue LAPD windbreaker over loose-fitting denim jeans.
Medium caliber, 9mm, maybe a 38. TOD, 2 to 3 hours ago.
Taking out their flashlights, Friday and Beltran walk around to the passenger side and look in through the car's open window. Keys still in the ignition. In the center console, behind the gear shift, 2 cup holders are both empty. The passenger side air vent has a small green air freshener in the shape of a pine tree. Looking up, they see the victim's mangled hands dangling from the closed sunroof. From this perspective, the victim's face is visible through the windshield just left of the rearview mirror, and specifically the items inside the dead man's mouth.
A cigar and a wrapper.
Possibly some sort of calling card, maybe organized crime?
I've never done an OC case. Is this a mob signature?
Like no mob I've ever seen.
Standing up straight, Joe points to the victim's broken wrists jammed in the closed door of the sunroof.
To get the hands that way, someone had to lean them on the car. You come inside, close the sunroof.
Still standing on the driver's side, Andrew Mark reads from his clipboard.
No blood in the car, steering wheel's been wiped.
Every inch of this car, cover it. Gotta be something.
Here comes organized crime. Hey, Gomez.
This has to be connected to Lisa Paris.
And that comes from...
It's a feeling. Don't you feel it?
Does Joe feel the 2 deaths are connected? For the moment, Detective Friday takes the 5th as he waves to another man approaching from the curb. A barrel-chested Latino detective, Carlos Gomez, has a big mustache and wears a dark blue blazer over an off-white business shirt, wine-colored tie, and of course, the ever-fashionable white latex gloves. Gomez recognizes Joe Friday.
Joe? Where's Frank? Sacramento, his dad's sick. It's Detective Denise Beltran.
Gomez nods to Beltran.
Sure, seen you around.
Can you tell us anything about Joseph Nash?
Joey Nash, all I know. Last 2 years, Japanese mobs went after him, wanted a cut of his business.
I thought the Japanese had a cut of every porno business.
Apparently not his. IRS, FBI, Sheriff's Department, we've all looked at Nash. He's clean. Him and his partner.
Friday checks his notebook. The name of Nash's business partner...
Kevin Ellis.
Joe hooks a thumb at the BMW about 10 feet away.
Come on, let me show you something.
The 3 cops approach the car as coroner's personnel begin carefully removing the body. As they bend the victim's arms down by its sides, the face of Joey Nash is now visible, and Friday aims the beam of his flashlight at the deceased's mouth.
Cigar jammed in the mouth. Now, is that a mob signature?
Not one I've heard of, Joe.
All right, thanks.
Friday and Beltran approach the building's entrance. Gomez steps away to look inside the passenger window as forensic tech Andrew Mark wordlessly collects the cigar and wrapper as evidence before coroner's staff load the deceased into a body bag. With Gomez having files from FBI, IRS, and Homeland Security, Beltran turns back to address him briefly.
Can we get copies of your files on Joey Nash?
Tomorrow.
And then she says to Joe,
Do you buy the mob here?
I'm curious about what his partner says.
Friday and Beltran approach the building's entrance. Exiting the building, a uniformed cop holds open a large metal door as detectives enter the lobby and walk directly back to the producer's office, where they find Kevin Ellis, like any reasonable man, sitting next to an open bottle of bourbon and empty glass. Joe offers condolences, then comes right to the point.
Well, Mr. Ellis, if you have any idea who killed Mr. Nash, if I were you, I would not hold back.
He had a partner before me. They split. It wasn't friendly. Actually, Lisa started here with them.
Who was the partner?
Andy Furnell, Andrea. I mean, I like her, but Joey screwed her out of some money.
Detectives wait as the surviving business partner retrieves contact information for Joey Nash's former partner, Andrea Furnell. Friday and Beltran thank Kevin Ellis for his assistance, and as they leave the office, the 40-something producer, still seated, freshens his glass. The following morning, while en route to Malibu Estates, Joe Friday drives as Denise Beltran, sitting in the passenger seat, uses her smartphone to call Andrea Furnell. The retired adult film producer picks up on the third ring. Beltran identifies herself as LAPD, explains the unfortunate news about Joey Nash, and extends her condolences. After confirming the woman's home address, Beltran and Furnell agree that detectives will drop by her beach area property in about 20 minutes, and they'll try to keep it brief. And right on time, detectives park in front of a palatial 3-story mansion surrounded by enormous, healthy-looking oak trees. Inviting detectives into her spacious living room, Ms. Furnell displays happily utter contempt for her deceased business partner.
Joey screwed me, I screwed him, and he deserved it.
You sound like you're still angry.
Oh no. Me kill him? Do I look mobbed up?
With long, straight red hair pouring down her back, the attractive 50-something stands 5'9" on a slender 140-pound frame.
Kill him? No. I'm retired, doing just fine.
Traversing polished hardwood floors, the three people pass an enormous aquarium with at least one black eel with enough room to swim.
Do I need an alibi?
Last night.
Oh, brother.
With a labored sigh, she settles into an easy chair as cops remain standing.
Last night.
The Valley Women's Clinic getting my T-cells checked. Then counseling a girl who just found out she'd spend the rest of her life doing the same thing.
HIV. In 2003, very few treatments. Most patients can expect a cruel and abruptly truncated lifespan.
I'm sorry.
Said Joey screwed me. That's how.
He was HIV positive?
Not him, please. But Lisa Paris wasn't the only life he left in his wake. There've been dozens. When I started, he said, audiences didn't want to watch condoms. When you're 24, doing coke, making 200 plus a year, you think you're invincible.
Do you think Lisa and Joey's death were connected?
Lisa doesn't just commit suicide.
What was Lisa and Joey's relationship?
For her, it was only about the money.
Visually glancing up and around.
She wanted this, then out. The whole time she worried about people finding out. When Michael came back into her life, the girl was terrified. All she could say was, what the hell would he do if he knew? What in God's name would Michael do?
When detectives get back to robbery homicide, they see the father of the deceased, Ted Paris, waiting for them in the lobby, and he is not happy. In order to afford the grieving father a small amount of privacy, Friday and Beltran escort the family patriarch into one of their available interview rooms. Joe walks in first, turning on the fluorescent lights. Dominating the left wall, a mirror, presumably a one-way, with white plastic vertical blinds flanking its sides. Two chairs placed at a square-shaped metal table bolted into a green-tiled floor.
Could have told me the truth.
What truth would that be, Ted?
A reporter from the Times said there was a murder out in the valley, a man who made porn films.
Beltran stands near the door.
That's correct.
As at the small table, the two men sit facing each other.
She said you were investigating a connection to this man and Lisa.
Don't spare my feelings. What was the connection?
Ted, your daughter was making movies for Joey Nash.
Beltran remains standing.
That's where her money came from.
As the two men sit down facing each other at a small square-shaped table.
She went out of her way to hide it from you, from everyone. Ted, this isn't your fault.
Does Michael know?
If he does, he hasn't told us.
Oh, he's just a kid from the sticks.
We have the autopsy report. The coroner's ruling Lisa's death undetermined. Thinks it might be an accidental overdose.
I'd like to see the report.
We'll get you a copy.
I just want your kids to be happy. If not happy, at least safe. Lisa, she didn't even like me having Playboy in the house. That it made a bad impression.
Abruptly, Ted Paris stands up.
She did not kill herself. Not Lisa. This
turns back to face Joe.
This pornographer, he must have killed her.
There's no evidence of that.
I swear.
He grabs the doorknob.
I'd kill him myself if he wasn't already dead.
Then walks out in a huff. Still seated, Joe hangs his head regrettably. If only it had been just the two of them alone, Joe might pretend he hadn't heard that. And of course, he'd also need to know absolutely the interview room's recorder had been turned off. It's sad. With his daughter dying under suspicious circumstances, Ted Paris must be at his wit's end. And if Joe were in Ted's shoes, he might have said the same thing. I'd kill him myself if he wasn't already dead. No. As sworn peace officers, the two detectives cannot simply let this go. Unfortunate, but in the wake of such an excited utterance, detectives must now consider Ted Paris as a suspect in the murder of Joey Nash. Friday submits paperwork to begin a more thorough background check on their new suspect. Any large purchases, trips or shipments out of state, contacts with prison inmates, and other surveillance, and fill out an application for a search warrant on his home and business. No time for lunch, and it's already after 5 p.m. Calling it a day, detectives agree to meet up tomorrow morning at Vehicle Forensics Garage. By tomorrow, VFG will have collected fingerprints, hairs, fabric, and all other trace evidence, not just from the car itself, but also from the parking lot where it was first discovered. Beltran sends a quick email to Vehicle Forensics Technician Andrew Mark, so he'll know to expect them. Thursday, 7:15 a.m. Before meeting at VFG, Beltran's at the local coffee shop when she runs into Joe Friday. A shared appreciation for simplicity, detectives are amused to discover they both order exactly the same, large coffee black. Joe laughs, clearly evidence of moral virtue. "20 minutes later at Vehicle Forensics Garage, exiting their unmarked squad car, detectives have traded in coffee cups for white latex gloves. Entering the enormous warehouse-sized building, they recognize and instinctively walk towards the shiny black BMW currently located in Garage Bay 7. It's sad to think, depending on where the investigation leads, detectives could be bringing charges against the man who's just lost his daughter, and before that, his wife.
Gotta say, Ted's feelings aren't far from my own.
Did you ever get a case where you liked the suspect better than the victim?
Once again, they're greeted by forensic tech Andrew Mark, this time wearing a dark blue jumpsuit.
Joey Nash's car, no prints.
No fingerprints? The victim had his hands clamped in the closed sunroof. He was shot in the head and there was no blood anywhere in sight. How could a perp pull off all that without leaving any fingerprints? Frustrated, Joe points at different parts of the car as he speaks.
Had opened the door. Had to turn the ignition. Someone had to operate the sunroof.
We call him the bumper to bumper.
Nothing at all. What about the original location where the car was found?
Dirt, fiber, nothing.
Parking lot, too. The guy knew what he was doing.
Thanks, Mark.
This is nuts. So, two suspicious deaths, both porn workers, both conspicuously lacking of trace evidence. Still undetermined, Lisa Paris might have been a suicide, but Joey Nash? Absolutely no way. Zero evidence. Could this have been another cop? Maybe some homicidal forensic tech? Who else knows how to remove evidence so thoroughly?
Doesn't this have hired professional all over it?
Even a high-end hitman isn't this good a pro. It just doesn't feel like mob.
Yeah, but not some amateur like Ted Paris. Come on, you saw him. He didn't know what his daughter was doing. And the fiance, Michael, he didn't even know who Joey Nash was.
Detectives consider everyone they've spoken with.
What about the friend? The one that had the bachelor party?
Yeah, the newlywed, Michael Byrne's friend. Joe checks his notes. Roy Williams.
What could he tell us?
Gave his wife a card, asked if he'd give us a call. 36 hours, he never did.
If Michael Byrne pulled off this hit, I may be in the wrong business.
Come on.
Where are we going?
One more stop might reaffirm your career choice.
Mr. Social Issues. Friday and Beltran head back to Panorama City, but this time they do not call ahead to let them know they're coming. About half an hour later, detectives return to the home of Roy and Irene Williams. This time, both newlyweds are available, currently taking groceries out of an older model Volvo sky blue hatchback. With an armload of groceries, Irene Williams regards detectives with a smirk which is somewhere between sarcastic and smug.
I forgot to tell him to call you.
Mrs. Williams turns on a heel and carries the groceries toward her house. Still standing at the hatchback, detectives address Roy Williams. First things first, cops focus on Saturday, the night before Roy's wedding.
The night of the bachelor party. How late was Michael here?
But Irene is standing at the front porch, still holding her groceries.
You're wrong, you know. Whatever you're thinking about Michael, he didn't do anything.
There's a question pending. Roy Williams can either answer here or downtown at the station. Joe tells Roy his lack of concern is unusual.
We're trying to make sense of your behavior. Most people we pay a visit, they want to help us.
The newlywed takes a moment to think it through. He says Saturday night, during the bachelor party, Michael Byrne left about 9, maybe 9:15.
The night of the party.
The night Lisa died.
There was the usual. Booze, strippers. But there was this porn tape. My brother brought it. When it came on, Michael... I thought he was going to have a heart attack. He ran out of the room, threw up, and... I thought then maybe he had too much booze. But the guy said he hadn't had much. He just left.
Do you remember what this porn video was?
My brother, he actually buys the stuff. Some girl he really likes, J.C. Roberts.
So that explains the Saturday night Lisa Paris died. Without mentioning the murder of porn king Joey Nash, investigators now focus on the past 24 hours. Roy tells detectives Michael came back last night, said he had recognized Lisa on the porn tape. Lots of crying, Irene gave him coffee, and he left about an hour after he had arrived.
So last night, what time did he leave?
8:30. He was going to meet Ted Paris for a drink.
Roy makes a genuine effort to be specific, but he cannot think of the bar's name. But he's pretty sure Michael said it somewhere along the Ventura Highway, maybe Sherman Oaks or Encino. Answering a few more questions, the newlywed confirms what cops already know, and is actually a more credible witness than Michael. Detectives thank Roy Williams for his time, then head back to their unmarked squad car. Driving out to Canoga Park, detectives pick up Michael Byrne, put him in the squad car, and bring him back to robbery homicide for questioning. 2:15 p.m. Interview room 7. Friday and Beltran question 29-year-old fiancé Michael Byrne. After interviewing Michael in good faith, detectives have had to return on multiple occasions to ask him questions because he had not been candid, whether acts of omission or outright deceit. Either way, Michael is starting to wear a path in the carpet, and detectives have had enough.
You lied about the phone call. You lied about Joey Nash. You knew what Lisa was doing. You saw her in that video.
If you killed Mr. Nash, a jury could be made to understand. They understand crimes of passion.
I didn't kill anyone. I did it to protect her.
You did what, Michael?
Look, I wanted to help you guys. I really did, all right? But helping you meant hurting her.
Explain that for us.
I left the party. I went straight to Lisa's house. I confronted her. I broke it off, the engagement. I said some things that hurt her, and I left.
Go any place people saw you?
The Coronet on La Cienega. I sat at the bar till they closed, then over to Norm's 24-hour. That's where I didn't answer a call. Went home at dawn and changed for the wedding.
To go alone.
Oh, yeah, to go without her, I never wanted to see her again. On the way over, I thought about the engagement ring. I wanted it back. It was my mother's. I didn't want it on Lisa's hand. The door was open. I guess she wanted to be found, and when I went in, she was already cold. I knew it would kill her father. It would kill him if he knew.
What exactly did you do?
I searched for anything that could expose her. I found her tax returns, threw them in the car, and called 911. 3 years. Hundreds of men. Women, too. And for what?
So, 3 days ago, on his way to a wedding, Michael discovers Lisa's dead body on Sunday morning, hides her taxes, and then calls police. His delicate sensibilities notwithstanding, that would be tampering with evidence no matter how you cut it. Then, last night, without a word to detectives, Michael visits the home of his friends Roy and Irene Williams, tells them he had recognized Lisa in the porn video. But assuming Michael and his friend Roy are being truthful, last night he stayed at his friend's house only until 8:30.
Last night, after you left, where did you go?
I met Lisa's dad for a drink, the Pinnacle on Ventura.
What time?
9:30. I didn't kill Joy Nash. I swear.
So the latest he got there was 9:30. Michael claims he and Ted Paris had a few beers and did not leave Pinnacle till just after midnight. For now, and without evidence to the contrary, detectives take Michael at his word, tell him not to leave town, then arrange for cab fare back to his home in Canoga Park. In the meantime, Friday and Beltran drive out to Paris Auto Parts Northridge to question the Greta fathers.
It was starting to unravel. I was convinced now of what I'd suspected all along. Lisa Paris could not have kept her secret from everyone. Who else had stumbled onto the truth? Who else was aware of the unexpected turn in her life?
They pull into a gravel-covered parking lot just as an old scrap metal truck is slowly lumbering its haul off the property. Their suspect and grieving family member, Ted Paris, is currently out, and detectives take the opportunity to speak privately with the 21-year-old sister of the deceased, Jennifer Paris.
I thought you'd ask eventually.
You always knew.
Not always.
Getting out of the office, the three people walk casually among old used cars and piles of scrap metal.
Last Christmas,
A cigarette appears in Jennifer's hand,
I was at her apartment.
and the 21-year-old lights up.
We were doing her tree. This pile of junk in the closet, I saw a tape. I recognized her. I didn't tell her. I pretended I never saw it.
You told your father?
Are you crazy? No. I just wondered why. Back in high school, she was fat. Couldn't get a date. She lost the weight and they were all after her. She told me they didn't want her, just sex. She told me she didn't even like sex.
Jennifer, where's your dad?
He hasn't been in today.
Yesterday, what time did he leave?
He had a drink with Michael.
Jennifer, I said when, not where.
He told me he was going to meet Michael. He left around 7.
A few more questions as they wrap up their interview. Friday and Beltran thank Jennifer, then proceed to their next stop, the Pinnacle Bar in Chatsworth. Reviewing their notes, Friday sits in the passenger seat as Beltran drives. Forensics says Joey Nash was killed about 10 p.m., maybe 9:30. Michael says he and Ted were both at the bar from 9:30 till midnight. It takes detectives less than half an hour to locate the Pinnacle. Positioned on the far west side of Chatsworth, a rowdy-looking drinking tavern on Ventura Highway at the intersection of America Street. Inside, the dicey-looking biker bar is dimly lit and smells of stale beer and cigarettes. When entering, patrons have a choice of sitting at bar, booth, or table. At the opposite end of the floor plan, at least one pool table is visible in a back room. Also visible in that back room, a smaller back exit leads out to an alleyway. A brightly lit jukebox separates the two doors marked men and women. Hanging from the ceiling, a mirrored disco ball is motionless, probably hasn't rotated since 1977. A tough-looking white guy behind the bar, clean-shaven 60-something with tattooed forearms and a bandana covering his bald head. Looks like a retired biker himself. When detectives show their identification, the barkeep introduces himself as Clint T. Gagner. And while a little rough around the edges, his demeanor with police is helpful and honest. Showing him a face picture, Friday asks Clint Gagner if he's ever seen this man. Wiping down the counter, the bartender says, "Sure, that's Ted. He drinks MGD. He was here last night with a younger guy. Gagner thinks it was his son-in-law, or would have been." In a red-cushioned booth in a dark corner, a young couple sit together making out. All the other booths are empty. Joe Friday confirms Ted's been here before. You know Ted Paris?
Yeah, he's a regular.
Detective Beltran shows a picture of Michael.
He was here when this man came in?
I don't know what time Ted came in. The kid
He points at an empty booth beneath a large TV screen.
And the kid sat over there for a while by himself. I remember that. How long? Could have been 10 minutes, could have been an hour. I was busy pouring drinks.
When did you notice Ted?
I went over to offer my condolences. It was after my break, so had to be after 11.
At the bar, two different men separated by 3 bar stools. One drinks beer, the other with his head down next to an empty glass.
Is there another way in?
Yeah, the back, but everybody uses the front. They're afraid of the alley.
So if he used the back door, you wouldn't have seen him?
No, I was busy. I mean, if he doesn't stop at the bar, I wouldn't see him if he drove a Harley through the window.
Friday and Beltran thank Clint Gagner for his time, then depart the building through its rear exit. This is one ugly alleyway. Trash and debris litter the ground everywhere, and there's the lingering smell of urine.
Only one piece doesn't fit, the rest is perfect. Joey Nash was killed around 10 p.m.
Or as early as 9:30. Ted leaves his house, takes care of Joey.
And he sneaks in the back of a crowded bar so no one knows when he gets there. Motive makes opportunity.
But the motive's a day too late. He didn't know about the porn, he never heard of Joey Nash.
Joe Friday answers his smartphone.
Friday. Who? Where is he? Uh-huh.
An anonymous death threat has been made against adult film producer Kevin Ellis. And about 45 minutes later in Chatsworth, Friday and Beltran arrive at Nash Ellis Holdings. Putting on their latex gloves, detectives enter Soundstage 7 to find a tall, Asian-American forensic tech photographing a single sheet of paper lying on top of a wooden S&M bondage rack, complete with handcuffs hanging from chains at its 4 corners. Pacing the carpeted floor, the man they came to see, adult video producer Kevin Ellis, is justifiably worried.
I knew this would happen.
He points anxiously at the paper.
There it is.
With tiny cutout letters stuck to it, which form the message.
You're next.
Where'd you find this?
My car. They must have slipped it through my window.
Exchanging a nod with tall forensic tech, Beltran picks up the death threat by its top edge and looks carefully at its surface.
And no one touched this besides you?
Nobody.
She hands it to the forensic tech, who bags the sheet as evidence and takes it out to a waiting forensics truck. With any luck, they should have the trace evidence report completed by late this afternoon or early tomorrow morning. Friday gestures at the large mahogany desk.
Maybe it was here this morning.
I think I would have noticed that. They're gonna kill me too. They're gonna wipe out this whole company.
Put you in protective custody.
Anywhere.
Over the desk, Beltran quickly grabs his briefcase and smartphone as Ellis shakes his head.
Custody.
Anywhere. Lock me up. I don't care. These mob guys don't stop.
Kevin, this isn't the mob. The mob doesn't send warnings. Let's go.
With a gentle shove, detectives hurry Ellis out the door to the relative safety inside their unmarked squad car. Beltran drives as Friday calls the Excelsior Hotel, with whom police have an account for situations such as this. Half an hour later, as they enter hotel room 313, Friday, Beltran, and Kevin Ellis are greeted with the handshake of a tall, uniformed cop. Joe introduces Officer Sebastian Sanchez, saying he is now Kevin Ellis's new best friend. As Joe checks out the room, door and windows, Beltran sits down at the desk phone and puts in a call to robbery homicide. On the phone, Detective Connie Hubble says their application for a search warrant for the home of Ted Paris was just declined by Judge Andrea Nielsen due to insufficient probable cause. Well, disappointed, but not really surprised. Beltran asks, what about Paris Auto Parts? A public service has less expectation of privacy. Connie Hubble says the business warrant is still pending with Judge Linus Bernstein. but his clerk told Hubble that warrant will also likely be declined for the same reason. Yeah, the Constitution. Beltran smiles. That pesky thing. Hubble says Organized Crime Task Force called. Apparently, Beltran had requested copies of their files on Joey Nash. Beltran affirms that's correct. Hubble says one of the files is currently under investigation by the feds. The detective, Carlos Gomez, said he needed his captain to sign off on it, and his promise of tomorrow might take a little longer than that. On the phone, Hubble says sorry she didn't have better news. That's okay, Beltran never shoots the messenger. Wrapping up their conversation, Beltran hangs up the phone. Joe says Officer Sanchez will guard Kevin Ellis till midnight, at which point the grave shift will take over. Dinner will be delivered at 6 p.m. tonight. TV gets most of the basic channels. No booze, but there's a deck of playing cards near the phone and a Gideon's Bible in the drawer of the night table. Not shy about expressing gratitude, Kevin Ellis repeatedly thanks Friday and Beltran and shakes hands with Sanchez for the third time. Heading back to robbery homicide, Beltran drives his Friday ride shotgun. So far, both their search warrants have been declined. When judges get too stingy, sometimes it's better to go through the DA's office, and Joe knows a prosecutor who might be able to assist. Pulling into vehicle motor pool, Beltran sets the parking brake as Joe gets a text message from Forensics Lab. Ready for pickup, a trace evidence report from this morning's death threat to Kevin Ellis. Friday asks Beltran to pick up the lab report. In the meantime, Joe calls Assistant DA Eric Hansen. Not exactly drinking buddies, but in recent years working together, they've been responsible for 11 successful convictions. Add to that, they're both devout Dodgers fans. Half an hour later, Beltran returns to RHD to find Joe working at his desktop computer. She holds up the lab report from this morning's death threat against video producer Kevin Ellis. You're next. It's cut out letters and the page they were stuck to.
The paper's clean.
She hands it to Joe, who looks it over briefly, then puts it aside.
Who cuts out letters like that? Who sends a note you're next?
Someone who's playing a game?
Joe types something on his keyboard.
The game's called Watch Me Scare You. It's not about killing him. It's making him miserable before you kill him.
Then reads its result.
How clean was the paper?
Sterile. No prints. The envelopes peel and seal. No saliva. No DNA. The glue, most common stick you can find. I mean, this guy knows what he's doing.
One guess. What did Ted Paris do in the Army?
She stands up.
I'm guessing
And comes around to his side of the desk.
he's not in food services.
He points excitedly at his computer screen.
CID intelligence is DD-14.
As standing behind him, Beltran follows his gaze.
He was a military cop. He investigated crimes in the service. That means we know he knows how to play games.
Cop. No wonder I kind of like the guy.
We share the same problem.
Joe stands up and approaches Detective
Hubble.
Hubble stands up and turns to face Joe Friday.
We got Kevin Ellis under guard at the Excelsior. I want you to go get him, take him to his warehouse. I want every tape that Lisa Paris ever made. Now, whatever's missing, go to porn stores, rent them, buy them. Every video she was ever in.
Done.
Every tape Lisa Paris, J.C. Roberts, ever made. Joe turns back to Denise Beltran, who says,
We're no longer assuming Ted Paris didn't know what Lisa was doing.
No, that's history.
Whoever it is, the killer just upped the ante with that death threat to Kevin Ellis. Add to that, new judiciary rotation starts Monday, and the next judge assigned, Clarence P. Hamilton, no one knows anything about. Third time's charm. Friday spends the remainder of his day drafting a new application for a search warrant of Ted Paris's home and business. This time including the death threat against Kevin Ellis. Whether relevant or not, Joe can always try. During this time, Beltran starts a background check on Roy and Irene Williams in Panorama City. The following morning, Friday grabs a note stuck to his desk phone. Opening it, he recognizes the printing of Connie Hubble. There's a little gift for them in the conference room. Happy face, CH. Conference room. Turning on the lights as they enter, they see dozens of X-rated videotapes and DVDs nearly covering the long, narrow meeting table. In theory, every video Lisa Paris, J.C. Roberts, ever filmed. Detectives put down their coffees and begin looking carefully at each box, one by one.
Hundreds of them. This was how Lisa Paris had spent her youth. Sex in front of a camera. Then she wanted to stop. It was too late. There was a bachelor party, a porn tape, and the knock at the door she'd feared the most. She couldn't go back to who she'd been.
Beltran considers the title Prison Heat. Its cover shows a brunette woman gagged with a tennis ball, sitting in a chair with her hands tied behind her back.
What are we looking to get from this, besides nausea?
Keep looking.
Your stomach can take it.
Denise Beltran picks up another box for the film Gratified. Joe regards the film Dominance, which pictures a young redhead kneeling and looking up.
How did Ted Paris know? How do you know his daughter was making porn? How do you know who Joey Nash was? It's gotta be here.
Finally, he sees it.
Bingo.
Deja vu. Or at least quite a few uncanny similarities. He grabs the video and reads its title aloud. Highway Harlots 2. Oh, a sequel, of course, because the first Highway Harlots left so many unanswered questions.
Guy had an ego, produced by Joey Nash.
Joe hands her the box.
Check the license plate.
Vanity plates, sex toys with 2 X's. On the box's cover, Denise Beltran sees the now familiar shiny black BMW, again with a body draped across its hood. But unlike murder victim Joey Nash, this sexy woman's body is alive and well. Indeed, very much alive and well. Or at least she was when the picture was taken. Pictured here as if going out for a night clubbing, shrink-wrapped in a tiny white mini dress with matching 3-inch heels. J.C. Roberts herself, aka the deceased, Lisa Paris. The curvaceous 26-year-old kneeling on all fours on top of the vehicle, her butt slightly elevated, arms outstretched, holding on by the sunroof. Voluptuous cleavage pressed against the car's tinted windshield, her head turned back to look over a suntanned shoulder. Lisa Paris, frozen in time, smiles seductively at the camera with a large cigar comfortably wedged between whitened teeth. Black BMW, sex toys with 2 X's.
Nash's car. The same pose we found his body in, right down to the cigar.
Ted Paris saw that. That's how he knew.
A few hours later, Friday and Beltran are working at their desks when they're approached by a tall, well-dressed African-American man in his mid-30s, and Joe introduces Beltran to his friend and colleague, Assistant DA Eric Hansen. The three discuss the case as they walk over to the office of Captain Ruth Hagerman. Eric Hansen says grieving parents say crazy things all the time. It doesn't mean they kill people.
Ted Paris has motive and no alibi.
He lied repeatedly and on the record.
With everyone now inside,
In a sworn statement?
Ruth Hagerman closes her door,
No. He lied to the police.
then steps behind her desk.
I've been in major crimes 19 months. I can't take felonies to trial and lose.
Did you look at the videotape? The dead daughter in the same pose as the guy he killed?
12 jurors see that and say good riddance of bad rubbish.
Oh, I see.
Behind her desk,
So she's in porn, so she doesn't matter.
Captain Hagerman remains standing.
Besides, this is not about her, it's about her father.
The tape box convinces. It doesn't convict.
You sound like Johnny Cochran.
God forbid. Ted Paris. He have a registered gun?
A 45, not a 9mm, but he could have others, unregistered.
Hagerman takes a seat.
We shopped judges, Nielsen, Bernstein, Hamilton. No search warrant, insufficient probable cause.
Probable cause. Isn't that in the eye of the beholder? Maybe you could find us a judge.
Standing at Hagerman's desk, Eric Hansen looks back at Joe.
This was your idea, wasn't it?
What's the matter, counselor? You don't want your ass on the line?
My ass is always on the line.
The assistant DA turns to face Captain Hagerman.
I'll get you a warrant.
The prosecutor departs the office with a pat on the back from Joe. Good man. And by crack of dawn the following morning,
He got us our warrant. We went over to Ted Paris's auto parts business.
for most of the morning, Paris Auto Parts seems to have more officers than the police academy.
But Ted Paris was smart. We wouldn't find the obvious. We hoped maybe we'd find what he overlooked.
Renowned technology writer Isaac Asimov observed, quote, "The most exciting phrase to hear in science, the one that heralds new discoveries, is not eureka, but that's funny," unquote.
And in Ted Paris's business office at Paris Auto Parts, while looking through one of the file cabinets, Denise Beltran spots something unusual.
Have a look at this. Purchase order sending metal to a scrapyard.
Friday puts on his glasses as he takes the invoice from Beltran.
Well, that's what Ted Paris does for a living.
Check the dates. He sends a load every 2 weeks for 7 months, and then this week twice in 2 days.
Good observation, Detective Beltran. Yes, 2 pickups in as many days. The 17th, that was the day Ted Paris was out of the office, and the purchase order agrees, signed by Jennifer Paris. Apparently there's something in that load of scrap metal Ted Paris was eager to get rid of.
Be nice if they still have this stuff.
They look at the company logo at the top of the invoice. SJW Scrap Metal Recycling, Tahunga, California. Good pricing and fast pickups. As a lawful extension to the warrant on Paris Auto Parts, Friday asks Beltran to take a warrant team and go to this SJW Recycling, and if at all possible, see if she can find this special delivery from Paris Auto Parts. On hand, their contracted metalsmith, Elliot Hyman, says if they find anything, they're going to need to get at it. His acetylene blowtorch and other resources can usually retrieve any crushed metal product in less than 1 hour. Joe agrees and tells Hyman to accompany Beltran to the recycling plant. In Tahunga by 9 a.m. at SJW Scrap Metal Recycling, Beltran and her search team have isolated Tuesday's block of scrap metal from Paris Auto Parts.
You sure that's all there was from Ted Paris?
That was Tuesday afternoon. We picked it up from Ted Tuesday morning.
Okay. Mr. Harmon, open it.
Ted Paris had been in a hurry. In a mound of crushed metal, we found a crushed gun.
Detectives Friday and Beltran arrive at ballistics lab about 45 minutes later. Digital readouts and various scientific equipment being used by studious-looking people in white lab coats. One such lab person, a 30-something Caucasian man with glasses and a short-clipped beard. Ballistic specialist George Graham says most of the 6-hour 9mm was crushed and its chamber destroyed. However, the barrel itself, with its identifying lands and grooves, was neither damaged nor even bent. But surprise, surprise, the entire pistol is completely free of any trace evidence.
Totally clean. No prints, blood, tissue, debris, nothing. I want to hire this guy to do my floors.
And the barrel's been filed.
Inside's like glass.
Friday recalls Paris Auto Parts has a lathe and sandblaster and also a table vise.
It's convenient having a machine shop.
Slug will show us something.
Yeah, if I could fire that thing, which I can't. Chamber's shot.
What if you took the barrel off that one, put it on another 9mm? Could you fire through it then?
It's possible. Give me an hour.
But it takes less than that. About 45 minutes later, as detectives are sitting at their desks, ballistic specialist George Graham walks up and hands his report to Joe Friday. Summarizing their findings, Graham tells detectives he was able to successfully fire a bullet from the recovered gun barrel, just as Friday had suggested. Comparing that bullet to the one that killed Joey Nash, the 2 slugs are similar enough to declare within reasonable certainty that this is the 9mm semi-automatic pistol that killed adult film producer Joey Nash. Receiving thanks and 2 grateful handshakes, lab specialist George Graham departs, heading back to the elevator. Just then, Joe gets a text message on his smartphone. Carlos Gomez, the organized crime. To release the files they have on Joey Nash, they need a signature from a D3 or above. Must be something pretty big to require an authority signature. Putting on his jacket, Joe asks Beltran to call Eric Hansen at the DA's office and have him add to the warrant the lab results from this recovered 9mm. About an hour later, Joe returns to robbery homicide, where he finds Beltran speaking on the phone.
Same caliber weapon, the same manufacturer. Yep, we'll let you know. DA wants to know how it'll play out in court.
He drops a stack of file folders in front of her.
You were right.
4 manila, 1 red.
About what?
You told Gomez to get everything the other agencies had on Joey Nash. The red one is FBI.
She opens it as Joe continues speaking.
Ted Paris has a friend there who pulled that over a month ago.
Beltran sees zoom telephoto long shots of the adult film producer shopping at the market.
That's how you know about Nash.
Playing golf.
Profile of Joseph Nash.
Eating at restaurants.
Surveillance pictures.
Detective Friday. Well, tell your boss I need 3 arrest warrants. Yeah, we'll fax them.
3 warrants. You want to tell me what you have in mind?
Ted Paris plays a pretty good game. I want to raise the stakes.
Though he does not condone Ted Paris's crime, Joe can understand the 56-year-old Army vet's motivation. Sitting at his desk, the lead detective says he'd prefer to avoid the use of handcuffs. The next hour and a half is spent mostly at the courthouse picking up hard copies of the arrest warrants, then briefing the dozen or so uniformed cops who will assist in serving said warrants. It's 3:30 p.m. when Detective Friday pulls into the gravel-covered parking lot of Paris Auto Parts. 2 LAPD black and white cruisers pull in behind him. And to control access on and off the property, the 3rd black and white parks in the driveway with its red lights flashing. Exiting their respective vehicles, Joe Friday and the uniformed officers slowly approach the building from all sides. As often happens when dealing with otherwise lawful perpetrators, the suspect, seeing all these cops on his property, opens the door and steps out, meeting them halfway. Glaring defiantly at Joe Friday, Ted Paris keeps his temper in check.
You got a warrant? Get out your cuffs.
Ted, we don't have to do it that way. Just come down with us.
When I was at MP, I liked serving warrants. The process of justice, I like being a part of that.
The lead detective resists the use of handcuffs.
No arrest. Just come down and talk.
You feel sorry for me. Don't.
Turn around.
As the suspect complies, turning around,
you're under arrest for the murder of Joseph Nash.
Joe Friday steps back.
You have the right to remain silent.
As a uniformed officer handcuffs Ted Paris.
Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. The right to an attorney.
After being booked, fingerprinted, and mugshot, a shackled Ted Paris is escorted by guard into interview room 4. Similar to the interview room from the other day. Small square table, 2 chairs, fluorescent lights. The former Army investigator spots the familiar one-way mirror, this time on the right wall, and its blinds are closed, suggesting they cannot be seen from the observation room next door. It's a technique used by police to add a sense of privacy, encouraging the suspect to speak more freely. Though, as both men know, most likely Ted Paris is being videotaped by some unseen hidden camera in the room. Or the closed blinds could just mean no one cares about Ted Paris. As the detainee sits down at the metal table, Joe uncuffs Ted, saying he trusts him not to get squirrely. And when Joe Friday offers him something to drink, coffee, water, Ted declines, denying police a sample of his saliva. He's played this game before. Most likely they've got some evidence against Ted, but not enough to convict. The tape recorder's there to trap Ted up in a lie. So Ted's job is to say nothing that implicates him. Just bland, non-committal statements. Murder's bad. These are crazy times. What can you do? Everything else is smoke and mirrors. Gesturing to the tape recorder, Joe says this interview is being recorded and confirms once again Ted Paris has waived his right to counsel. Rolling his eyes, Ted says he hasn't killed anyone, and if they had enough evidence to convict, he'd be speaking to someone from the DA's office, not some police detective. With a confident sigh, casually clasping his freed hands behind his head, Ted Paris leans back comfortably in his chair.
I've been in rough spots before.
I'm sure you have.
The 2 men sit facing each other across the table, with a small courier satchel as its centerpiece. Moving the bag to the side, Joe opens it and removes the lab report summary on the glue stick used in that death threat to Kevin Ellis. Its individual letters stuck together spelling out, "You're next." He puts the report in front of Ted Paris.
Same glue as in your shop.
32,000 sticks sold since January.
Unfazed, Friday puts another sheet in front of him. Ballistics lab summary comparing those 2 bullet slugs.
Slug from Joey Nash, one from your gun.
Those slugs look pretty clean. Could come from different guns. It's all circumstantial and you know it.
Well, here's something that's not circumstantial. You came in here and you told us you didn't know Joey Nash. You wanted that to go down on the record.
Reaching into the courier bag,
the problem is,
the detective removes that red FBI folder.
We can prove you had files on Nash.
Opens it and shows it to Ted Paris.
FBI files.
Including those surveillance photos of adult film producer Joey Nash.
You knew him.
That's not enough for a conviction.
Time for the heavy artillery. Joe Friday pulls out Highway Harlots 2, the picture on the box of his daughter Lisa, buns up and kneeling, seductively crawling up the hood of Joey Nash's BMW.
When did you see this? Months ago? Weeks? How long did you hold that inside?
And the grieving father's eyes begin to well.
Until Lisa died? Because then I can imagine you'd need some reasons. Why? Why did this happen to my daughter? And this was the answer. She was young, sweet, and innocent. They took advantage of her.
Trying to stay objective, Ted Paris focuses on the specifics of his case. When it's all said and done, Detective Friday's bag of tricks here is just a distraction. The FBI file, the glue, the gun, none of that matters. Whether or not there's some hidden camera is irrelevant. And if Joe pulls back the blinds, he could have the entire Supreme Court watching from behind that mirror, and it wouldn't hold a candle to what Ted says here now in this interview room. If this does go to trial, for all intents and purposes, that tape recorder is the jury.
She was just a kid. Kids do stupid things. They don't think about the consequences.
Well, you thought about the consequences. Can I get away with it? They trained you well, didn't they?
Don't understand me, okay?
My Latin teacher used to quote Aquinas. To understand all is to forgive all.
Ut omnes intelligere, omnium sacramenti sit remissio.
And I don't need your forgiveness either.
I'm not talking about you forgiving Lisa. Now, maybe you killed Nash because you blamed him and you thought he deserved it. But there must have been a part of you that blamed yourself for failing her.
Joe gets up from the table.
Don't fail the one that's left.
Reaches and opens the blinds. As the suspect stands, the detective tilts his head toward the mirror.
That's the one way.
Oh, thank you. Yes, the former U.S. Army investigator understands what a one-way mirror is. Ted Paris can see his reflection, but no. Apparently Friday has flipped the glass to face the other way, so Ted can see them, but his only living daughter Jennifer and his would-be son-in-law Michael cannot see Ted.
So this is where you're going.
In the room next door, Beltran and a uniformed officer stand over the two hapless detainees, sitting at a table side by side, looking bewildered and angry.
Accessories after the fact. Michael lied. He said you were in that bar, you weren't. Jennifer signed that purchase order to get rid of the gun.
Ted Paris stares aghast through the soundproof window.
Come on, they didn't know.
We're going to charge them, and we're going to force them to roll over on you. They're young, Ted. They got their whole lives ahead of them. You want to bring them down?
Briefly taking his eyes off his daughter, Ted looks at Joe.
You do that.
You know I'll do what I have to. Now they'll testify against you or they'll both do time. And even if you're right and we can't convict you, do they deserve it? Now this is what's going to happen if you don't give me another way. You're fundamentally a decent guy. I want you to do the right thing.
Yeah. I sat on your side of the table. You've already talked to the DA. You know what they'll accept, so make the offer.
Second-degree murder, 15 to life. You can get out in 8. Michael and Jennifer walk. Lisa doesn't get her life dragged across the front pages.
Finally, with no other hand to play, the suspect Ted Paris concedes and agrees to plead guilty to the murder of adult video producer Joseph Joey Nash.
You know, if it had been just me, I would have walked up to that bastard, emptied a clip in his head, then phoned you then and there. Jennifer needed me. I had to get away with it.
Case closed. Upon completion of Ted Paris's transfer to Department of Corrections, Friday tells Beltran to clock out early. She's earned it. Monday promises plenty of paperwork and email with Eric Hansen over at DA's office. It's nighttime, and the fourth floor of RHD is mostly empty, as Joe retrieves a large cardboard box marked Evidence 03-01-54361. He drops the 9mm pistol into a padded envelope and puts it in the box. 2 evidence bags, one with a death threat, the other with the glue used to make it.
I understood what Ted Paris had done. I understood why he did it. And I thought there, but for the grace of God. But understanding doesn't get you very far. And the truth is, when you do what I do, neither does God.
He opens the case file and takes one last look at a talent agency photo of aspiring actress Lisa Paris, smiling radiantly for a more mainstream audience. He takes the video box of Highway Harlots 2 and puts that in the evidence box as well. Closing the box, Joe just looks at it.
It seems that in everyone's life there's one moment, the one that matters, after which nothing is ever quite the same. That moment in Lisa Paris's life changed her and everyone around her. You think back, you wonder, where's that moment in your own life? When did you become who you are? And who else might you have been?
Ted Paris entered a plea of guilty to second-degree murder. He is currently serving 8 to 12 years in the minimum security prison in Lompoc, California.
Executive producer, Dick Wolf. We hope you've enjoyed this audio adaptation of LA Dragnet, Redemption. Original TV program directed by Darnell Martin, written by Brian L. Ross, and produced by Tyler Bessinger and Barry M. Berg. Original TV air date, April 6, 2003. Original music by Mike Post. Original sound editors, Andrew Spencer Dawson and Michael Fairdy. Boom operator, John Hayes. LA Dragnet, Season 1, Episode 9, Redemption, features the following voices. Detective 3, Joe Friday, played by Ed O'Neill. Detective 2, Denise Beltran, played by Luna Lauren Velez. Captain Ruth Hagerman, played by Lindsay Krause. The deceased's father, Ted Paris, played by William Russ. Detective 2, Connie Hubble, played by Catherine Kami. Medical examiner Dr. Ramachandran Shah, played by Eric Avari. Adult film producer Joey Nash, played by William Francis McGuire. Retired adult film producer Andrea Furnell, played by Jamie Rose. Assistant DA Eric Hansen, played by Eric George. The deceased, Lisa Paris, played by Monica Algier. The deceased sister, Jennifer Paris, played by Carrie Carney. And organized crime detective Carlos Gomez, played by Daniel Sacapa. This audio drama of Redemption, produced at Project Wasabi Studios, Hollywood, California, 90028. Released 27 May 2019. Supplemental narration, editing, and sound effects by Brian Newberry. For more free audio dramas and non-fiction podcasts, visit us online at projectwasabi.com. This concludes our program. On behalf of Project Wasabi Studios, this is Brian Newberry saying thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.